This episode of Ask Lonnie Jones Anything is brought to you in partnership with the Ministry League at ministryleague.com. I'm Travis Creasy, and I'm so very glad that you're with us for today's Batified podcast. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media, and please do subscribe. Enjoy. Welcome back into the Ask Lonnie Jones episode of the Batify podcast. We're here once again with Lonnie Jones and Ben Hayes, and we're asking him your questions, and we're so thankful for you turning those in, and look forward to these episodes in the future as well. And we've got some more questions for you, Lonnie.
It comes from Harry Hames. He asked via the Youth Ministers Ministering Facebook page, we hear so many times, quote unquote, act of God or an act of God. Now, with this pandemic, we hear that God sent it, etc. What are your thoughts?
We live in a world corrupted by sin. That means there are going to be things that affect the human body and the human population because we are not meant to be permanent residents of this planet, and this planet is not meant to be permanent. So it's part of the natural order. When you get a fallen creation and you build into it an obsolescence, something that is designed to make it wear down and become obsolete, then yeah, you're going to get plagues and viruses and earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes. You know, Jesus said in Matthew 25, answering that, or Matthew 24, answering that question for the disciples, you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes and famine and pestilence. Don't let these things disturb you. It's not a sign of anything other than you live in a world controlled by physics and corrupted by sin. Now, when things happen, Romans 8:28 teaches that God uses things in our lives to make them useful. I don't believe everything has a purpose. I don't believe everything is positive, but I believe everything can become useful. And it's not what happens, but how you deal with it. And, you know, the Apostle Paul makes the statement, you know, I have learned how to be content in every situation. He didn't talk about the what of the situations. He talked about the how of dealing with the situations. And I think that's an internal mindset. And so, you know, the pandemic, you know, we've had pandemics before, the H1N1, the swine flu, the Black Plague, and humanity, you know, is designed to be susceptible to these things.
I like that word, useful,
because of sin.
You know, because I think that, you know, we can use this as an opportunity. I think some churches have been brought into the technological age, maybe nudged a little bit. Now, obviously, we're not equating that to all these people hurting and suffering and all that stuff as that's equal, you know. And I think that on an individual level, you can use it. You know, I can say sadly, unfortunately, I've probably talked to my neighbors more in the last 2 months. At least reaching out to them to see how I can help them.
Well, and I don't want to sound cavalier about the actual deaths and the suffering. At the same time, you know, 0.00007% of the world's population is affected by this. There's a 95% recovery rate, and the people who are dying from it are comorbid with other things. So there's been a little bit of sensationalism with it. Having said that, it still is a place where, well, I got asked to be a counselor at an AIDS clinic back when, you know, it was a death sentence. And these people approached me, a former hospice nurse that I had done some volunteer work, asked me to come over and work a day a week at this clinic. And I said, you do realize that I'm heterosexual, I'm a fundamentalist, right-wing conservative Christian. And she said, yeah, but can you have compassion on people who are dying? And so in the midst of any tragedy, the Christian's job is to have compassion.
I think in our world today, even before this pandemic, we had people who were, on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all those places. It's just so much easier to not be compassionate. And people just spread non-compassion way easier than they do the compassion sometimes.
And let me say to my keyboard warrior friends out there, nobody's ever changed the world by a Facebook post. And if you get out from behind your computer and go walk around the street, you might make a difference somewhere rather than being a brave warrior hiding behind your little screen. And, I don't engage in religious dialogue via Facebook, Twitter, or my email. If it's something that important, hey, let's drive somewhere, let's sit down, let's meet. But I'm not going to get involved in an exchange. It boils down to two little kids throwing corn cobs over the fence at each other. And, if you're really interested in what I think about something, let's talk about it. If you're engaging me just so you can prove a point or put a notch on your pistol, I have less than time to do that. I've got way more important things to do. And I typically, and everybody that speaks, has that guy that'll listen to you speak for 45 minutes and only hear one thing or not hear all the things that you've said. And, not only do I not have any time
Amen
for
to that.
I think they have too much time on their hands and could be more productive doing something else. I don't think I've ever spoken anywhere where it was a shock that I was there. It's not like people are standing there going, "Oh, he's on the program. Oh my!" If you don't like me and you disagree with me,
usually that's advertised ahead of time, right?
My feeling's not going to be here if you don't show up. It's cool.
So this is a fun question. I guess a fun question. I really didn't know this one was going to make it in here. I was amused by the question earlier, Lonnie, that you answered for us, and Travis threw it on here. So if you had to pick Ben or Travis to protect you, who would you choose? Will Myhan presented that to you earlier. So here you go. You got it for all the world to hear. Ben or Travis?
Okay. If I were standing in a place and the bad guys had physical access to me, and I had to depend on close range, I'd pick Travis because he's played football. If we weren't in the same area, in the same room, and it was a long distance threat, they're coming to get me, I'd pick you because you're a shooter. I've seen you shoot a rifle. I've seen you shoot a bow. Because it would have to depend on the scenario as to which one of you guys I'd pick. I think if Travis Creasy decided, you're not getting past me, I believe he could put an open field block on you that would ruin your day.
I know some of your friends. I know some of the people around you. You got anybody that you would go, this is the guy that I would take into any fight, into anywhere? I have a feeling I know who some of those might be, but who's the guy that you choose? Or who's the team? I don't know. Whatever you got.
Oh, man. Jim Goins, Dave Baggett, Bob Danoon, without question. If I had to go into a building,
so these some SWAT team guys.
Anybody on the planet.
The other SWAT team, not the guys that are doing the acting.
Yep.
You can't quote them
but
in some
Jim
of the places.
Jim and Dave and Bob are pretty funny in their own right. I just can't quote them a lot. Okay. That's right. And Dave is the guy that somebody told him one time they were going to open a can of specific liquid on him. And in about 30 seconds, Dave's boot on his throat.
Yes.
Must
Sorry.
have been a diet.
Yeah.
They're all serious men, close friends. I'm a better person for knowing them. I'm challenged to be a person of excellence. Jim Goins probably the bravest man I've ever met in my life, and he's a retired SWAT cop. But that's somehow, and that's not taking anything away from the other operators that I know. But you made me pick. I'd go, and not like I'm going to go into a door with anybody, but I'd go through a door with anybody who's ever been on that team. And I've got a Bible. I got a Bible in my body armor that I stuck down behind one of the plate carriers. Sometimes I put it in a medical kit bag that I wear on my leg. And it's got the name of every SWAT guy that I've ever worked with.
That's awesome.
And I pull it out.
That's really cool.
And pray for those guys by name.
Andrew C. Thompson, via Youth Ministers Ministering Facebook page asks, what has been the most rewarding aspect of your time in ministry?
The long-term tenure, so that you have the ability to see second and third generations of people impacted by God's mercy and God's love and God's grace. That, here's a guy who becomes a Christian because he dated one of the girls in your youth group, and then 20 years later he's an elder in the church and his son's going to grow up and be a preacher. Just the things that God does through our imperfect efforts, and he's changing lives and letting us be a little nudge or a little glimmer of that. And the most rewarding thing is that person who calls you after 20 years or sends you a note after 20 years and says, this was significant to me, and you don't even remember the story, but it was significant to them. I think it's humbling beyond measure that God uses
that's an amazing answer, because that's absolutely the way I feel about that too. It's great just to get those calls from people every now and then. Even sometimes it's even when it's not something I said, but some little inside thing that you had. And there's I had a couple of teenagers that were in my youth group that all texted me the other day, just kind of this little inside thing we had joked about 15 years ago, or I don't know, maybe not that long ago, 8 or 10 years ago. And you just go, wow, that they thought of me to put me in that, that those relationships you build, that's a really cool thing.
Well, you take it away from ministry in general and talk about youth ministry. Ministry is the only job where your clients turn into your lifelong friends. Derek Horst helped me unload my truck when I moved to Huntsville, Alabama. He was in the 10th grade. And, those of you who don't know, Derek's the big guy in SWAT. A young man named Jerry Tanner, lifelong friend. He was a 7th grader when I moved to Huntsville. And just those blessings, Chris Luter, Tony Allen at Freed Hardman, Andy Ashworth over in Arkansas, guys that were students of mine who are now men that I respect and men that I honor and have been an impact in my life.
One of the cool things about the SWAT episodes that we did was when you talked about Rick Schatz, now being an elder in the church and, coming to know the Lord when you were in youth ministry with him and your group. And that really is awesome. And I think, we've been doing Teacher Appreciation Week this week with our students, and, to get the text and the emails and that stuff is pretty important, and being in the hospital a few years ago and, just droves of people coming who care enough and have driven quite a distance to come and check and let you know how much they care is a pretty big deal. But all right, Lonnie, if you were a professional wrestler, what would your finishing move be?
In real life, I prefer an arm triangle, which is a head and arm choke that can be done from standing, from top mount, or from bottom side control, from bottom or from side control. It's a legit move. It really, really, really works. I put you to sleep with that. As a professional wrestler, I'd like to do something cool that would be banned in other sports, like a reverse rear naked choke from the back and then drop on your back with the guy. So you've got him in a headlock, but his chest is facing up to the ground. His head is facing up, but his head's actually behind you. And then you just kick his legs out from under and fall down. So you hit the back of his head.
And this is where we enter the do not try this at home, do not Google it, do not do this on your sibling or anyone else.
It's a choke it's a neck crank that Brandon McGathern actually uses, but he does it from the ground. He never elevates and drops with it. But it looks like you've decapitated a person when you do it.
That may be a T-shirt that needs to happen.
That's amazing.
And you came up with a name for it, Murder Sauce. There's the finisher.
No, that's a proprietary term that Brandon.
Well, there you go.
So, anonymous via the Facebook .com/Ben and Travis. is how can I find my talent and use them, or talents, and use them to serve God?
I think when you find that thing that you're naturally good at and that you enjoy, there's a state in some sports psychology stuff and guys who do a lot of coaching called the flow. And when you feel that you're in the flow, there's just some things that when you do them, they fit you. When you find that area that makes you feel like you're in the zone, that's the way, that's the path you should explore. And then finding out how to refine that and using it as a tool for God is sometimes a little more challenging, because everything can't, we've turned church leadership into upfront, out loud, wearing a tie with a title. And that's just not what church leadership is.
Mm-hmm.
There's a necessity for that. But when Jesus gave the Great Commission, he says, as you are going about. So as you are going about, it may be in coaching, it may be in artistic expression, it may be in songwriting, it may be in moving furniture. Whatever it is that you do it for the glory of God. And when you find, and it may be non-traditional, it may be something you go, hey, this has no way that I'm ever going to do a seminar in youth ministry about it. But that's the whole point, is that serving people. And read Ephesians 4 when he talks about he gave gifts to men for the equipping of the saints, to do work of ministry, for the edification or for the building up of the church. So the thing that you're good at, I'm extrapolating from the context, the thing that you're good at is the equipment God gave you to do service to people so the kingdom will grow. And so, if it's athletics or artistic or music or math, you figure out how to use that to serve people, and you found your niche. And then think in terms of a thing that I call significant obscurity. And that's an oxymoron, like Kentucky football and other stuff like that. But significant obscurity is where you make a large impact in a very small place. And, I think too many of us, want to go viral or want to speak to a room of, 1,000 people, when really your real work is done.
I think that's true too. And,
small group,
we get so wrapped up, and I think especially, ministers and people who watch and pay attention to ministers, a lot of times that's kind of what they think is, let's do the big things, but we need to make sure and do the small things. So.
Well, you talk to that, and one of the main reasons Ben and I do what we do, I know for me, is Gary Gooch, VBS, when I was 17 years old, calls me up and makes me do a fun song, a fun song that I don't even know, in front of everybody. So you can hold him responsible for that. You can blame him. But, at that point, I didn't think, in 20 some odd years, we'll be on a podcast talking to Lonnie Jones about, and so it's kind of starting, like you said, even with things that are uncomfortable, that you find yourself doing things and then it progresses. I'm still shocked to this day that Ben and Travis is on that CYC brochure every time I get it every year.
Yeah.
And it's
it's been it's just crazy. We've talked about that before, starting out as teenagers doing just some insignificant thing of, getting up and leading songs in the morning to get people woke up. And it's, turned into a format for us to, to hopefully impact somebody and somebody get some not just joy out of it, but maybe learn something every now and then.
I was at a men's conference, and the guy pointed out the verse in Psalm 78 where it said that God took David from following the sheep that had young and made him shepherd his nation Israel, and he shepherded them with the skills of his hands and the integrity of his heart. And I maintain that God didn't take a shepherd and turn him into a king. God took a shepherd and let him shepherd a nation. So you find that thing that you do, and you do it with your skill, and you do it with integrity.
Hey guys, this is Ben. I wanted to tell you about something that's really exciting right now that's going on. We're doing a Batify 30-day challenge. Many of you have jumped on board with that, but for those that are a part of it, we want to remind you to go to benandtravis.bigcartel.com. That's benandtravis.bigcartel.com, and you can order a t-shirt for that, or you can sign up for the virtual 5K that we're having on July the 4th. And we would love to have as many as possible sign up for these two things. And you can also give some donation if you would like, and all the proceeds, the t-shirts, the virtual 5K, and the donations will be going towards St. Jude. We're encouraging people, if they can, to sign up to raise money for the St. Jude Marathon weekend, which is coming up in December. And if you sign up for that, we'll split those proceeds among all those of our group who sign up and let us know that they're going to do that. You can sign up for the St. Jude Marathon, and when you do that, right now as a hero, I think starting in July, you can just sign up to do the run, but right now you can sign up to raise money for that and automatically become a part of the race. If you do that, then we're going to split the proceeds among all those who sign up, and all of that money anyway goes towards St. Jude. There's no medical bills for those who are at St. Jude, those patients that are there. They pay for the travel expenses. They give food vouchers to them while they're there. They provide housing, and they partner with local businesses to get discounts to restaurants and area attractions. It is an amazing place. Our family has been touched by it, and we're thankful for all that they do and have done for us. And so we just want to give back. And so if you would like to give to that, then you can go and visit benandtravis.bigcartel.com and either get you a t-shirt, sign up for the virtual 5K, or just give a donation, and we'll be happy to get that to St. Jude. We appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Have a great day.
Just want to take a moment as we get ready to ask the final question to our guests to encourage you, if you are in the market or looking to create your own podcast, to look at Anchor. That's what we use. As you listen, you may be thinking, if these two guys can do it, then anybody can, and that's absolutely true with Anchor. The best part is it's free. There's plenty of creation tools that allow you to record, edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can also contact and have your guests on from different locations or right there in the room with you. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. It can be on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
You know, you have a lot of hobbies. There's a lot of things that you do. You enjoy hunting, you enjoy bow fishing, you enjoy rock climbing. So I just curious to know, like, what has been, and this may not be a fair question, but what has been the most significant or helpful or impactful hobby that you have? And it's kind of like the last question. You know, some people are going, hey, I'm just looking for something to spend my time doing, you know, something healthy, you know, and maybe why is that, you know, the case for you, and maybe how would somebody find that for themselves?
Again, you find that thing that kind of speaks to you, the thing that you're sort of good at. It will take the part of your personality that you think is an outlier and doesn't fit, but this kind of rounds you out as a person, if that makes any sense. I would have to answer this in two parts. One is not a hobby. One's an investment, and it's my work as a chaplain. You know, the 28 years I've spent training with, being present with, and learning from and observing these men of honor, these men of integrity, these men of bravery, and how they conduct business with themselves and with the things that they have to do and endure and see. My exposure to them has been very significant in my worldview, my definition of what it takes to be a man, what it takes to be a friend. I can't tell you the impact that being in the company of heroes has had on me for 28 years. And then I guess the other thing would be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In fact, I just recently wrote a small little pamphlet called Grappling with Life, Controlling Your Inside Space. And it's about spiritual, psychological, and emotional self-defense based on some real simple principles that I've learned over the years.
Because I think a lot of people do struggle with this when they're looking at, time spent in a hobby versus, the things we need to do in kingdom life, in doing the work of the Lord. So how do you find that balance in the things that you enjoy doing, like that, and what you do in the kingdom?
Well, again, if you look at everything that you do and look for the will of God in it, then either they're going to be a natural avenue for that, or that activity and the will of God will be mutually exclusive and you lose it. But, you look at the number of young people you've taken hunting. Look at the number of young people that Travis's passion for football has influenced as a coach. Look at the number of people that Daryl Pickle has taken bow fishing. Look at the number of people who have changed young people's lives just by exposing them to something they were passionate about. And I think it's that, you say, all right, here's this thing that I do. Here's this thing I'm good at. And is there an avenue here for the will of God to be manifested in it?
Yeah.
And if it's not, you pursue. But I think you can intentionally use it. Now I'm not saying that you want to become bow hunters for Jesus or something like that, but just understanding that you have avenues into people's lives, and it opens up doors for you that you wouldn't have in traditional ministry as well. The men of your church could say, hey, the fourth Sunday of every month, this would be an intergenerational thing. You come to our building and we'll teach you a skill. We'll teach you how to change the brakes in your car. We'll teach you how to diagnose a cooling system. And then once you've shared something like that with people, you've got a connection in their lives.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing thing too. And I agree with you on that. I appreciate your answer on it. There's so many people that get a chance to, impact. And I think it's a missed thing in the church. I think a lot of our men sometimes feel like, hey, I don't have a ministry. And yet you start asking them about their hobbies and you go, man, why could that not be a ministry? How could you not turn that into something? And sometimes it's just maybe illuminating that for them and letting them know, hey, this is something you could use.
And remember,
to impact
ministry
people.
doesn't have to be 15 people. It could be one person. You change that
Absolutely,
one person. You take that one person and give them the skill, and then what they do with it might be a different thing for the kingdom, or and so anybody can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can tell you how many apples are in one seed. And all we got to do is be putting the seeds out there, and then let God be worried. Let God handle the results. There was a thing on one of the Facebook things. Pat Bradford asked a question that you guys haven't got to yet.
Okay.
And he said, if you know somebody's coming to roll your yard, is it appropriate to hide on your neighbor's house? Well, Pat was my neighbor in a cul-de-sac for a number of years. And I've spent the night on his roof many, many times waiting for the yard rollers to come into Thermopylae. And
yes.
So shout out to Pat Bradford. The ladder always propped up behind his house, and the pizza we've eaten on top of his house, and the yard rollers we've caused to repent. Pat, appreciate you. It is absolutely appropriate to use your neighbor's roof as a spotting station.
That is phenomenal. Yes.
Well, Lonnie, we sure do appreciate you taking time out to be with us. Obviously, we never get enough time to hang out with Lonnie, but it's been awesome. 12-hour trips out to Texas and then 12 hours back. Certainly been a lot of fun, and we appreciate your friendship. And
listen, I love you guys. I'm proud to be your friends. I'm honored by your dedication to the things that we share in common, and to be counted in your circle. That's a big honor for me. And I love both you guys, your families, and I'm just proud to be in your company.
Well, thank you. Man, no,
Ben, you got
this has
anything
been
else?
awesome, and I can't wait to listen to it. And I hope that the world enjoys all the answers from Ask Lonnie Anything. And I know that they will, because I'm going to enjoy it and enjoy looking at the comments that they hopefully will leave when it comes time. But thank you for being with us, Lonnie.
I want to put out there, if you've listened to this podcast and you want to get your question to Lonnie Jones, there's several ways to do that. We've listed some of them: Facebook.com/Ben and Travis, Twitter.com/Ben and Travis. You can follow us on Snapchat. You can hit us up on the Ministry League. But get your question in, Lonnie. We hope to do this again in the future. And y'all have a wonderful day. Thanks for being with us on this Ask Lonnie Jones Anything episode of the Badify podcast. Be sure to download the Ministry League app and get all of our sister podcasts along with all sorts of great ministry material at facebook.com/Ministry League.